Here at the Giver Marketing Network, we don't leave you drifting out in space. We connect you to a coach who will help you build and grow your marketing business. Our process acts as a guide on how to connect with other businesses, maintain good relations, and establish a presence on the Giver Marketing Network. Each member within this collaborative group will have the opportunity to leverage your talent and influence, a true network effect. If you are looking to collaborate on more projects, welcome to the Giver Marketing Network, the most trusted and highest rated collective of specialists on the planet. Here we have a group of like-minded professionals who focus on making valuable introductions and helping each other grow by teaming up. Imagine Upwork meets a network and a coach. The talent collectively includes services like visibility and SEO, creating logos, designing websites, managing social media, outreach messaging, visual storytelling, and much more. Think of what you could do with laser-focused allies, strengthening your business while offering your talents to the entire network. Click near this video for more information.
Hello and good morning, Giver Marketing Network, and all of our wonderful fans out there. I know we've got Kingdom Warriors. We are just going to have some fun today. Timothy, I'm so excited.
Yes, let's go. This was a brainstorming idea that came up a while back, and we're finally here. We're able to dig in. So, Christine, tell us what are we doing today? I'm excited.
Oh my. Well, we've been talking about this for a while, this whole idea of AI and marketing. And, after last week's speaker, we had Dustin Stout, founder of Magi.co. And I got to say, he just inspired us to a whole new level. So now we're like, ooh, now we really got to dive into this. So thank you, Dustin, for inspiring us to go ahead and go deeper on this. So that's today. We just want to kind of do this whole meeting of the minds. We've got a bunch of marketers in the room. We've got a lot of professional experience right here in this room right now, who's going to just pour some love into you and share their experience, their wisdom, and what are our experiences with AI, right? How are we using this to move our businesses forward? And there's a lot of opportunities, I think, when it comes to bringing AI into the space of marketing. So let's go ahead and let this sucker roll.
All right, here we go. So at the end of the day, I think it's important to remember that Oz is the one that brought Dustin to the network. So we would have never met Dustin from Magi if Oz hadn't made one of his amazing introductions. He is like a master connector. Christine, you also do a lot of networking and connecting as well, and others do too. But honor where honor is due, right? When folks bring in software developers and AI specialists and other team members that have other specialties, especially somebody who's kind of has a timeliness to what we're seeing in our world today. So this conversation's probably going to span beyond even business. It's going to go into like the personal and the ministry and the passion projects and all the different things. But we're going to try to bring this to a logical understanding of how we can use these tools. Some of the first principles that we're going to be talking about today will be able to be applied to other technologies, other innovations. So think through this from a first principle or what do we know kind of standpoint, and then we can get into like here's what we've done in our business or our personal lives to help use these tools to serve us, not the other way around. We don't serve the AI. I just went and watched a movie with one of my kiddos. And the movie, I think it'll be around for a while, so I can mention it. It's called The Creator. Mm-hmm. And this movie, it's kind of in the same lines as like Ready Player One and some of these other ones. In fact, I think it was produced by the same people. But, who's serving who? And that's a real interesting question. So I'll just open it up to those in our green room today. What are the first principles we know about AI? What do we know? I'll start by saying AI serves us. Like that's essentially where we are, at least for right now. Like, that's where we are for right now. That's what we know. Okay. There's a lot of unknowns, but what do we know? Anybody else have any thoughts about what do we know about AI? Not just how we use it, but what do we know about it?
AI is, most of it, very protective of what it puts out. There's so many large language models out there that will not, you will speak to them and say, well, I cannot give you that information because it could be harmful. There's other AIs out there that will give you that information. Dustin Stout and I have had some deep conversations about this on, what the world governments will do down the road with the information or the misinformation that AI can present to us, or dangerous information that is or isn't available to us. I know I'm going down rabbit holes here. There's so much information I have because some of the people I speak to that I will be bringing to Giver Marketing, like Sharon Miller. I'm just going to read something really, really quick. If you don't know Sharon Miller, you should. I know Christine had a meeting with her. That probably was a really, really good one. When you're doing any writing for anything, whether it's a blog post or anything that you're going to put on the internet, be aware that if you're writing it in ChatGPT and you put it out on the internet, Google will flag it and no one will see it. Why? Because they're competitors. So if you use Google Bard, which is very similar to ChatGPT, they're very, very similar. Google will not flag it, will allow it out. The easiest way to do anything is change it 15% or more. Make it your own. Do it in your own voice. You can use ChatGPT. I use it every day. But if you're going to put information on the internet, it will be flagged by Google as AI, and nobody will see it. So change it 15%. I know I said I was going down rabbit holes, but you guys know me.
Well, hey, Oz, there's a first principle in there somewhere. What's the first principle?
I would think do no harm.
Okay, there you go. So let's try to use these tools in a way that would help the world be a better place and not confuse people and not cause issues leveraging the tools just like any other tool. Great first principle. Joel or JT? JT, what do you got?
For me, and what I find is that AI is meant to save time. That's like the first principle that I use when it comes to AI.
Love it. So JT's focusing in on kind of the saving time element. Joel, Joel Snyder, I know you had some dovetail comments around that. What other first principles maybe can you bring similar or different than what we've talked about?
Yeah, I think one of the first principles is that AI is a good research tool. It really has amplified the Google search concept. It's fun to try and experiment to put something in Google search and then put the same thing into Chat GPT or whatever your language model is and see what the difference of results are. It's pretty eye-opening, actually.
Great research tool, time saver. It can be done in a ethical and positive manner, like Oz was talking about. Christine, what are you thinking? What are you thinking as far as first principles?
It doesn't have to be scary. Sometimes technology scares people, so it doesn't have to be scary. You're not going to break it, so it's okay.
Not going to break it. Doesn't have to be scary. That's worth noting. I mean, these are either philosophical thoughts, ideas, and concepts, or first principles of some kind. These are the overarching framework that we're bringing to this conversation. In the next few weeks, we can do a little teaser here, Christine. We're going to be diving into what AI means to terms in marketing like branding, visibility, or how people search for you and find you, promotion, nurturing. How do you follow up? How do you do this with class? I think a first principle, like I was saying before, is that these tools are here to serve us, not the other way around. So with all of that being said, kind of the high level stuff, let's talk about some of the tips Oz was teasing us with earlier. Like,
Hey, Tim,
how-
I have
how-
one more thing.
what do you
One
got?
more thing. The overreaching principle of everything else that everybody listening to this must understand. AI is a young child. And you always have to remember this. AI is a young child. You must speak to it succinctly and train it, and it will thank you constantly for correcting it and training it and treating it as a young child, which is exactly what it is. This technology came out a year ago, guys. It's like it's been here forever. So remember that every time you're on Google Bard or ChatGPT or anything else that you're speaking to a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, and you have to do it with love and care and understanding that they don't understand what you're saying sometimes.
Well said. Some would say we're dealing with a baby here. Some would say we're dealing with a young child. Either way, we're young. Like it's kind of like discussing like different aspects of history that's only been around for less than 10 years. That's still young. Like even if the early stages of AI were 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's nothing like it is today. So in our current iteration, when we say AI, we talk about artificial intelligence or intelligence that has aggregate information or imagery for us to play with. Like this is our sandbox that we're able to play with. Joel, you had talked something about, let's get into some of the details, some of the tips, some of the ideas that might be able to help us boots on the ground. We just talked about kind of the overarching principles. Let's get it. You mentioned something earlier about, think of it as, what did you say? Automated?
Using AI as an automation intelligence. How can you take a task and automate it through the use of AI tools? And one of the things we have to be cautious about is that AI does not give credit to its source of that information. So that's why we have problems with AI generated content being credible. So you want to be careful. Changing it and all of that is important because of the plagiarism rules that are in effect. So having the research tool, having an automated process that you can then gain information back from to move things forward quicker. So I look at it more as an automation process rather than I'm taking information and regurgitating it in some way.
Interesting. Okay, so everybody uses these tools differently. It's kind of like saying I use social media for XYZ. Everybody uses these them differently, and actually that's kind of a first principle. We all use it differently. I'd be curious to know. We have half a dozen folks in the room. There's a few others popping into the green room right now, and we might let them in. We might not. We'll see. But listen. I'd be curious, what are the actual time saving or results that you're getting from leveraging these tools? It might be GPT, it might be Magi, it might be Bard, it might be something else. But the point is, what is actually happening because you started using the tool? What's the result? I'd be curious about everybody's kind of thoughts on that as we get into the practicals of what we're doing to move the needle in our respective businesses, even our personal lives. Like, what are you doing? How is this working for you? Anybody have any? I'm not talking about tips here. I'm just talking about results you're getting, and we can talk about tips in a minute.
Yeah, one of the main things, the simple application, is things like creating headlines for content. Finding good keyword topics. There's a handful of tools out there, but if you could aggregate all of those tools into one response mechanism, that's what chat, gives you. So having the ability to say, give me 10 headlines in this voice for this audience, is an automation process that saves an enormous amount of time.
So we got the time saving there for headlines, ladies and gentlemen. If you're taking notes, just type in the word headlines in the comments. If you're listening or watching the recording, just so you can take your own notes. Like this is some practical applications. This is how some of these marketing professionals are actually using this. And you might say, well, that doesn't save much time. Depending on how many headlines and pieces of content you're developing, you can save not only hours of time, but how about hours of mental space? Like not just the time, but like how do I use the right word and make sure it's not like misspelled or misplaced or misunderstood, or it's in the like there's so many times in my life where I've found out I've been using words that actually don't fit with the sentence. Like my definition of the word isn't really, so it's almost becoming a thesaurus meets a creative engine all at one time for me personally, because I don't always spell words right. I don't always think of phrases properly. So it helps me, it assists me in that way. Very good point, Joel.
I come from a generation where we used to pull executive teams together to come up with branding headlines. And it was a full day's workshop, right, to get 10 headlines to vote on, to bring it down, right, to something more meaningful and succinct. So when you think of it in those terms at the highest level of the executive level of an organization, all of a sudden now, instead of a full day workshop, you've got 20 headlines in 2 seconds, 10 seconds, right?
Yeah, and then you just throw those over to your team, see what they think, have them pick one or two, and then boom, bada bing, you're at least halfway through what you would get in a workshop. Maybe it doesn't completely replace those meetings, but it certainly does streamline them and save you hours and hours and hours. Okay, those are great points. Anybody else using this, boots on the ground, literally like last week? How did you use these tools, and how are they? What kind of results are we seeing here?
Yeah, I got one for you, Tim. And it goes back to word usage and allocation. For me, in creating artwork, I was on with an interior designer, and I said, haltingly, there's nothing I can't create with AI through Magi. Okay. And she said, show me. And we jumped into Magi and went into Midjourney and started creating prompts. And she said, okay, I'm working with an interior design client. I need you to create something that looks like a piece of white silk flowing through the air, falling onto a white table for wallpaper. And, here I am, this artist, and I work with color. I'm like, so you want white on white? He goes, yeah. And it took about 20 or 30 iterations. We didn't get it done that day because she wanted no black, no gray, no folds, no bends. I mean, it was like the most boring thing. But when it finally came to fruition, weeks later, she's like, oh my God, I love this. I'm going to present it to my client. She's presenting it later this month. And it just changing a word here and a word there and learning Midjourney from trainings to know exactly how to prompt something. Language is so important. And again, going back to what I said earlier, we're dealing with young children here when it comes to all of this technology, and being specific and speaking the language that they understand. You get exactly what you want, and then you get paid. So it's a good deal. Thank you, Dustin.
Nice. All right. So who else has, Dustin, you play around quite a bit. You've obviously developed a software that you can be proud of. And Dustin's last name is Stout, by the way. So if he says anything awesome, you can go find him and say thank you for your creation. But anybody else, Dustin, JT, anybody else have any like results-based actions that you've been using?
So I could probably go on for days. I mean, all I have to do is open up Magi and look through my list of chats that I've recently done. But I'll give you a couple concrete examples that I think many people would use. So I use it for problem solving, specifically math problem solving. And I did this recently because I wanted to, my goal with Magi is to turn it into $1 billion business. And so I wanted to know, how many users do I need for it to be valued at $1 billion, to be generating $1 billion in revenue? And that's a pretty straightforward math question, right? Like I could sit down and write it out, but it's much faster to just ask the AI And so I just told the AI, well, my average revenue per customer per month is this much, and how many users do I need? And then it helped me do that. But then I could take it a step further with AI, because AI is all knowing and knows about many things. And I said, so at this point where I'm at, so I said, here's how many users. We have about 993 active paying users right now. If we grow consistently at 50% month over month, how long until I reach that goal? And so it can help me chart out this math of this growth trajectory that I want to follow. And then I can follow that up with any other questions that might help me reach those goals. Well, what are some things I can do to help me get towards that goal? And so very, very quickly it comes from, I need to solve a simple math problem, but also, like, how do I get to the actual goal that math problem represents? That's one great use case. Another one I'll give you is there is an entrepreneurship grant program here in Bakersfield, California. And there's a big PDF pamphlet with all the details of this grant program, how to apply the grant program, what it requires. And I didn't want to read that whole thing. It's a big one. It's hefty. So I was able to take the PDF, drop it into Magi, hand it over to an AI model called Claude, which is exceptionally good at maintaining good information and getting large amounts of information in there. So I was able to say to Claude, hey, read this information and tell me what requirements I need in order to apply to this grant program. And it was able to systematically and succinctly tell me exactly what I needed to do, tell me the timeline, the dates that were, I needed to do them by. And it turned, an hour's worth of me reading a PDF and trying to sift through and analyze all of it myself and then make a little list. It turned that into a 30-second process as opposed to an hour. So
good examples, great examples. Anybody else have other examples? They don't necessarily need to be math related, or like Oz often brings the imagery related ones. Like there's all these different. I can just give you one quick one as we're going around. Somebody had asked me to read a chapter of their book, and you know where I'm going with this, Dustin. But I was like, I'm excited for this chapter. Don't get me wrong. I have tough time reading long copy. Half of it has to do with the work we're in. The other half is just my personality type. So it just is what it is. Okay. So I've come to realize I need to be able to skim things very quickly, or at least get bullet points. And I wanted to write an honest review or an endorsement at the very least for this author, because I really love what she's doing. It has to do with empathy and in the workplace and some different things. So I'm looking at this. I'm like, I read the first few paragraphs. I'm like, this is solid writing. It's not a lot of I's, me's, my's. It's a lot of we's and stories and lots of kind of grab your attention and language that was really helpful. I'm like, okay, I can already tell that this is going to be good. Then I run it through. I think it was I went into Magi, started playing with a couple of different ones. I think I did end up in one of the tools within Magi. So that was kind of fun. Went right into it, uploaded the chapter, asked it for some summary language just to kind of make sure I was on point. Then I asked it to help me write a really awesome endorsement. I've changed the wording a little bit after it gave me some ideas. Again, skimmed through it a little bit just to make sure I was like being authentic here. And it came up with an endorsement that if I would have worked for an hour, I probably would have come up with something similar-ish, but it certainly helped me streamline that process. So some would say that's not authentic, man. I'm like, it is authentic because I'm reviewing everything myself. Like there's nothing inauthentic about it. It's just a tool that's helping me streamline a process. So to Joel's point of kind of automating a process, if you will. All right. Anybody else have any examples? And by the way, all of us have resources and books that we could use a second pair of eyes on. If I send you something like I have a book coming out next year, if I send you a copy of the book or a summary of the book, and you want to do exactly what I just said, please, as long as it's coming from you and your tools and how you're putting something together, do that. Like, just do it that way. It's the English language, other languages even, are extraordinarily intricate in how we can use not only the language, but the universal language of art is interesting in this conversation too. So, all right, who else has some thoughts around practical?
Yeah, I used mine for creating I had a client reach out, and he's an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, and he needed a website in 3 days. And I was like, okay, that doesn't give me much time to research your industry, make sure I understand what your challenges, what your clients' challenges are, right? And I was like, okay, well, here we go. And that was actually what kind of forced me into trying the AI, because I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be a game changer when it comes to time. And it did. I kind of asked a few questions from there. And the next thing you know, I'm not an expert, but I had enough that I could run with in order to create the content for the website. And oh my goodness, what a game changer that was. It was life-saving, seriously, trying to do something that quick for a business that needed a real fast turnaround.
Nice. Who else? That's a good example. Who else?
So one of the things that we do is we use it to increase our LinkedIn posts visibility. And so what we'll do is we will write a post, and if we're looking like a lot what Joel was saying, if we're looking for we'll get like 10 headlines, and then we'll mix and match how it works. Just give us ideas so that we can move forward, and we'll cut the time down by that. And I'm still learning how to do this part. We've used AI to create some imagery that we'll put up that will be eye-catching for people to really sit there and go, okay, like it'll catch their eye, and then they'll actually look into the post. And what it does is it increases our visibility, increases our impressions. And it really has created a whole use case just for that.
Super interesting to get into the nuances of that.
Yeah. From my side, from our side, we develop a lot of websites, and recently we had an opportunity to propose creating multiple websites. The requirement was to create about 300 websites within a short space of time, and so we don't have that capacity to do that. And so it was a choice between turning away the business or trying these AI tools. So I looked at an app, AI app that allows you to create these WordPress sites that we create. It takes us about 5 to 7 days on average to create a site. With this tool, we could do it in about 10 minutes. And so that changed the game. I mean, for us, essentially, like Timothy says, is that you need to ultimately be a domain expert or understand your domain so you could add value to the content that is created by AI. So it helped us in a huge way.
Okay, listen. Meganathan, I think we have an echo. So go ahead and mute yourself there. There you go. I think we're good. So listen to the nuances and the tips here, because if you're an industry expert, this can be your best friend. If you're a novice, it can cause a lot of chaos and mess. People can pick up on different things that you're doing that aren't really authentic. They don't know. If you don't know what you're doing, don't use the tool. Like, just don't do it. You can experiment in the backgrounds, but don't publish your work if you don't know what you're doing. Like, have some fun with it and learn it. But goodness gracious, let's not pretend like we're experts just because we got a tool in our hand. I love that, Meganathan. That was really smart, really, really on point. Ingrid, are you able to add to some of this conversation with your work in communities and coaching, and like, how is this helping you? Are you here to have some fun with us in other ways, or did you want to mention a couple of things?
Yes, I'm experiencing benefits of using it as a research tool in creating messaging on topics that could otherwise be somewhat dry, and trying to create engaging stories. And I'm finding it very good. On the flip side, I've enjoyed the examples that have been shared because they show it as truly a tool. Because I've been experiencing some others in my industry that have used it and relied on it as a way of, I will say, lazy thinking. And just as you said, have published some things prematurely, some without editing, and it becomes very apparent that that's what they're doing. I think it will be a game changer for those who are positioning themselves as influencers and experts, and it will show the difference from a coaching and consulting standpoint from a market that has been flooded over the past few years from the perpetrators versus the true experts.
Good thoughts. I was thinking through some of the activities that I can continue to work on based on some of this roundtable discussion. Some, not only the imagery side, but the language side. You said the word dry, and oftentimes in our experience, we use language repetitively. And I alluded to this earlier, but if I start reading a resource or a post or a blog, an article, a book, a chapter of it, anything where I'm reading longer content, if it starts getting repetitive, I'm out. Like, just give me the summary, or because you're repeating yourself. You're just telling me the same thing. Now, it's different if you can repeat yourself in a creative and interesting way so that you can tell me through story, you can tell me through maybe different language set, you can tell me through historical examples, science, data, factoids, all these. That's different because you're dancing around the topic. I think that's one of the underutilized parts of AI is being able to play around a topic with different. I was just digging into some topics and found that going into the Greek or the etymology of a word and understanding what this word actually means from a historical context could add so much flavor to a conversation. There's a couple of words that came up in a show that I was watching yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to run that through AI and find out what in the world, where did this word come from? I can't even remember. I know it's called sits something. It's a music term, and I just found it fascinating. So on a personal level, I might find that fascinating and dig into the etymology or the history of that word, and then play around with that concept and as it relates to business or ministry or whatever it is. I just find that, like you said, Ingrid, not so dry. It brings it to life. There's a use of language that I think we're going to start seeing people use language they've never used before because of the thesaurus factor or the creative factor that's kind of built in.
Well, I was just thinking about a blog post I read earlier this morning from our team member, Nate Sauce, and he had a great analogy where he was comparing like websites and how much does the website cost? Well, to like a vacation. And I was like, oh, I love the way that, right? And the comparisons, could be really big and fancy, it could be a simple trip, it could be, the cost and how that, all the details that went along with it. I'm like, oh, what a wonderful way to explain that, right? So I think you can, and he mentions, he always puts in there, this was helped or persuaded by or influenced by AI, right? He'll just straight up be honest on that, which I think is interesting. But the idea that we can use it to help spark our own creativity, right?
Well said. Well said. All right. So what questions do we have for the audience? We talked about being curious a little bit earlier, Christine. What questions do we have for the audience, or can we draw out from the audience? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this live or even on the replay, throw in a question about AI. I'm unsure about this. I'm scared about this. I'm excited about this, but where do I start? Any questions around like what could help you? Please, this will help inform us for the next several weeks how we're going to be playing with these topics, especially around branding, visibility, promotion, nurturing in your business. How do you follow up with your clients, customers, prospects? All these kind of conversations can be extraordinary, not just content creation, but maybe problem solving. Like, what if you have a new part of your business that you want to create 3 tiers for? when it comes to offers, like developing your offer and kind of reverse engineering that. Any questions around those pieces, we can be here to help you not only live, but others in the comments can kind of rally around you and help you as well. So, I mean, creating offers, content, imagery. I mean, let's talk about branding just as a teaser for next week. Like, branding is how people experience you through imagery and language. And you can also throw in the 5 senses if you want to get really nerdy about it and all scientific-y about it. But at least imagery and language, just start with that. Something you can see or hear. That's 2 of the 5 senses, right? That's one of the reasons Zoom is so powerful, because it includes sight and sound in a live environment. So this is part of our brand, right? So we'll talk about that more later. But at the end of the day, if there's any questions around how to increase your impact with anything you're doing in your business, from a business plan to offers to everything in between, like what questions do we have for each other? Let's get curious. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, we were talking about the blueprint and how really the branding, visibility, promotion, nurturing, right? AI. So what kind of questions do you have for us? Everybody share, put it in chat, right? Let us know what kind of things you want us to talk about and teach you when it comes to AI, right? How can we help you? Because that's why we're here. Why do a broadcast if we're not helping our audience, right? So let us know what it is that you want, and we want to help you with that. And Tim, I'm going to say we've got people posting right now about having questions about, hey, what about this? How about that? Right. And some of these we can probably get to today, but these are going to be in upcoming shows that we're going to be doing. But one of the ones I see was, here we go. This is a good one. Since we have Dustin in the room, can the platforms be used to share chat so we can look them up? So they want to know, what are we using? Great question.
All right. So Dustin, go ahead and drop whatever you want to drop in the comments there, and that'll be one of the platforms. You can also make reference to some of the other ones. I think Violet mentioned ChatGPT, but there's so many other ones that maybe our resident expert Dustin can help us with. Megan, Nathan, you might have a couple of thoughts to pop in the comments as well. But yeah, what are some of them? Let's just list them off. Let's just mention them right now. Like, what's included in Magi? Help us. Let's just start there, Dustin. So what's included?
Good question. I'm not sure where to put in the comments.
Yeah, we can do it as we verbally go through it. Don't worry about that. We'll figure it out. So Magi, just to start with that, it's kind of an aggregate of awesomeness, right? What are some of the 3 or 4 tools that most people use within Magi?
Dustin, you talk. I'll type.
Please do. Thank you. So Magi was created because all of these great AI tools were coming out, and the trouble with this is anyone who's trying to use it on a regular basis, and specifically in a professional environment, if you're doing work with these AIs, you don't want to have to log into 15 different things and have 12 different subscriptions and have to manage them in 25 different places, right? Magi was created to bring the best AI tools into one place, one unified interface, one subscription. So Magi includes two modalities of generative AI: the chat conversational AI and image generation. In regards to conversational AI, Magi gives you access to GPT, ChatGPT 3.5, ChatGPT, GPT-4, and then both the 16K and 32K extended context windows for those models. You also get access to Claude, which is GPT's big competitor. You get access to Claude's instant version, which is the equivalent to GPT 3.5. And then you get access to Claude 2, which is the equivalent of GPT-4, except it has much more capacity.
All right, I'm going to pause you right there, Dustin, because you're getting really technical, and a lot of people love that, but then there's others that need a little interpretation. So there's a couple of major learning models that he just mentioned there. GPT, just to keep it simple and sweet, and Claude. If you want to learn more about those, you can go look them up. That's fine. But within Magi, they're all included. So it's super fun to just play around that way. It makes it a lot easier. What are the other 2 or 3, Dustin, without going into too many details? What are the other
So
ones?
it also has Palm, which is Google's conversational AI model, and Llama, which is Meta, or AKA Facebook's large language model.
Okay. And then how do you play with the imagery-based ones? Is it more of an editor at that point, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a separate tab, I guess, in the interface. Currently working on bringing all of that into a single interface, so you can have your chat and your image generation one chat. But that's a few weeks out. But as of now, it's like its own tab where you have access to Stable Diffusion XL, one of the most advanced image models. You have access to Dolly 2, one of the least advanced image models. You have access to Leonardo, which is a company creating very stylized and very fine-tuned versions of Stable Diffusion. And then we have in beta currently, small group of beta testers have access to Midjourney within inside of Magi.
Nice. I think we have one of those beta testers here today. So that's very cool. Listen, there's what was that? 6 or 7? Was that 7? I think that was 7. 8. Anyway, 7 or 8.
10, give or take.
Yeah, 8. Let's call it 8 to 10, depending on how you're counting, of the most common, most used AI tools on the planet. And so Dustin just went through kind of some of the aspects of each one of those. If nothing else, with this roundtable discussion, go look up those tools. If nothing else, play with Magi for a free trial for a while. Just do it that way, or go look them up individually. If you have all the time in the world, you can do it that way. But go grab some version of these tools and go play with them, because they will save you 100 times the amount. You spend some time learning them, and they'll save you about 100 times on your investment. Okay, like that's just what they'll do. Like it's an easy promise, right? At that point. So, all right, what other questions do we have besides what tools are actually available or platforms are actually used? That's a great question, Violet. Thank you for that.
Well, and I see some really interesting concepts on use cases, right, that we may not have thought of on our own. So I love when we see those. And we have an offer framework that we created, and it allows us to place individual client scenarios and build an offer sequence, including emails, posts, and potential webinar deck. Wow. That's a whole lot right there. Oh my goodness.
I have a friend named Chad who has, it's a framework for building the narrative and story around your brand. He has a very similar use case.
Wow. Super interesting. What other thoughts, comments? There was one about WordPress. There was one about something else. What do we got?
Yeah, I'd love to know the one you used for WordPress, what the name of that one is.
Was that from Megan, Nathan? Yeah, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so I posted, it's called 10 Web. And just to add 10, the number, so it's 10 web.
Got it.
And so just to add a comment to Dustin previously is that if you look at the MarTech map, and I'll post the link in the chat, is that there are over 10,000 MarTech tools available that you could look into.
So all sorts of questions coming through. What's the best way to evaluate all the ridiculous volume of new AI apps coming out daily? And that's true. There's a lot of them. And how do you know which ones are good ones, which ones are better trained, right?
I've got a really good answer for everybody that wants to know the answer to that question. Just go to Magi, because you could play for free for 7 days. Checks in the mail. Play for free for 7 days with probably about a dozen different apps. Okay, there's just guys, just do it. I mean, just do it. There's nothing stopping you. Somebody put an affiliate link in there, please.
Do it, Oz. Rock it, man. Let's go. All right. So
find it.
Oz is going to find his. When it comes right down to it, there are so many, and Megan and Nathan just mentioned a term, MarTech, and some of us know what that means and some of us don't. So marketing technology, essentially that's what this conversation, this roundtable is about, is new technology in relation to marketing and communication of any kind. And we define marketing in this broadcast as pre-decision communication. That's visual communication, that's written communication, that's all types of communication having to do with the five senses. And we'll talk about that more next week. But marketing in general is a exercise in some type of communication. So this is a tool to help us with that. Marketing technology, MarTech. So, and before I met Megan, Nathan, and a few others, I didn't really understand the depths of that world. And so I appreciate y'all bringing your genius to the table today. All right, what other questions, Christine? Help us out as we start landing the plane here.
My goodness. This is a hot topic. We have lots of comments going on. I know we had seen something about, where did that go? Oh, here we go. Nate Sauce is wondering about what are some quicker ways to get the AI to write with your tone and voice? And we just talked about personalization, making it sound authentic. That's a big topic right there.
Dustin has to take this one because he's developed something genius. Tell him.
Well, I hate to make it a big, long infomercial about Magi. So let me give you the way you can do it with any AI. You can, the best way to do it, in my opinion, if you have writing, things that you've already written in your own voice, in your own tone, like blog posts, or maybe you've written some ebooks. What you can do is throw that into an AI, copy and paste. In most apps, you'll have to copy and paste. Just so happens with Magi, you can just paste a link and it will grab all the information automatically for you, or you can drop in a PDF. But in any AI, you can put the text that you've written in there. And what the instruction you want to give it is something to the effect of, please analyze the writer's voice and tone and summarize it into a set of instructions for an AI model to write in this same voice and tone. Now, if you do that with the advanced models like GPT-4 or Claude 2, it will do a fantastic job of categorizing your voice and tone and describing it in a way that might be really difficult for you because you maybe don't have the words to describe your own voice. So once you have the short description of your voice and tone and you've formatted in a way that is an instruction for an AI model, then you can give that instruction to the AI model. For if you're using GPT-4 inside of ChatGPT, they have a function called custom instructions. If you place your instructions for your voice and tone into that custom instructions, then it will do a fairly good job of writing in your voice and tone. Now with Magi, we have something called custom personas where you can create multiple ones. You can create a custom persona based on your voice with those instructions in there. And then at any point in the chat, you can activate that persona and the AI will write in your voice and tone.
Love it. So we got some tool. Go ahead, Megan. Nothing.
Yeah, just to add to that, thanks, Dustin, is that what I'm busy with currently is building AI persona chatbots. So that's a big term with LLMs, which they call large language models. But basically, it means that we can take all the content that's specific to you, say everything that Timothy's written. And then what we can do is then you could ask this bot questions and it will reply in Timothy's tone using his knowledge.
You're talking about using embedding models, right?
Yes. So what we can, it's private models that you're building around this knowledge content. And so, yeah, so I think reach out, let's chat more about those things.
Good conversation. Christine, what else do we have from the audience? We got the great Peter Nieves, IP attorney, and some others kind of chiming in right now. So this is going to get pretty interesting pretty quick. But we do want to kind of address some of the questions in the chat.
Right. I see we're getting a lot of feedback and we're putting in a lot of our favorite AI tools. So I'm going to invite our audience to also put in some of their favorite AI tools because you may have experienced stuff that we haven't played with and we want to know about it. right? So I'm seeing there's a lot of sharing going on, which is fantastic. This is going to be one of those things you want to save so you can come back and collect the information and download whatever you need out of it, because we've got a lot of wealth of knowledge in here.
If I might, I wanted to address, I just saw the comments over here in StreamYard. So Peter mentions that if you upload your work into most free AI software, your work becomes available to the public. And that is true. So by default, a lot of these LLMs will basically use anything you put into it for training their next big model. And you have to kind of like read through the privacy and policies of these tools in order to find it. With GPT, ChatGPT in particular, there's a setting where you can say, I opt out of training models with my content. With Magi, it's private by default. So we will never, because we use the API, it's automatically set to not allow any content sent from our server to be used to train their models. So really just take some time to read the privacy policies. And if you're worried about that at all, of companies training their next big AI model on your content, you definitely want to look at the fine print.
Wow, I hadn't even thought about that.
Is that similar to like how we would think of content we put out on like general social media platforms and some of these other, like that's generally like, doesn't that end up becoming public content at some level in some way? Or how, are we blurring some lines here? Like, how is this, at what point is it public?
I mean, that's a great question. I think anything that you are, for example, like I think of chats like Google Docs. Like you don't intrinsically think, oh, my Google Doc is going to be public information, right? We have this sort of assumption that we are creating something for ourselves, not in a public forum like we would like a Facebook post or a tweet or an Instagram post. Like those are created with the intention of sharing with others, whereas a conversation in an AI chatbot should be naturally assumed that it's private. But like I said, read between the fine print to make sure that that is the case. Like with ChatGPT, by default, it is allowed to be used in their training models unless you specifically go and opt out. But yeah, most people would assume privacy first, but it's not always the case.
Great points.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter, for bringing up those topics. We should definitely land on those a little bit in the next several weeks. And I'm excited. Christine, can you wrap us up with maybe one last comment and maybe if there's one last question or something?
Well, Peter's mentioning that for mid-journey people, you can use stealth mode, right? So kind of like you're talking about, is it private or not? But realize that your images will be seen on Discord. So good to know, right? I'd never even thought about privacy issues. So these are great topics to bring up. Those that aren't used to AI, haven't been playing with it, right? These are concerns that we may not even be aware of, right? So as we break into this whole new world of AI, these are some fantastic questions we have coming today.
We're coming into a new era, Christine. This is a different world. Like, if you're using basically almost any tool on the internet through your computer or mobile device, you need to assume that could be grabbed and used somehow. Now, whether it's legal or not, that's a whole nother conversation that Peter can help us with because he's a great attorney in that regard. But it's just worth noting that, look, we're kind of a shared open source economy here within the Giver Marketing Network. We love sharing things, but there are some things that, like, this is something you don't want public. So be very careful where you actually like put that into a system of any kind. If it's owned by another company, you got to assume it could be grabbed in some way, at least in principle. And so a lot of folks will talk about, I have a special process or a patent or an idea or a concept that I just don't want to share with anybody yet. You need to ask questions to Peter and others who have insight on that. For the other 98% of the other content that we play with that we want to be public, we're probably good, but it's that 2% that could really cause a lot of anxiety. Christine, any last thoughts as we wrap up?
I'm just thinking, let's wrap this up and talk about what our plans are, because this was just the beginning of it all, right? So we're going to actually be talking about how to use AI for helping with your branding. That's going to be the focus for next week. Future episodes are going to be visibility, AI and promotion, AI with nurturing. So this is going to be a fun series that we're going to be doing. So if this is something you're interested in, be sure to reach out. Let us know. Make comments in chat and let us know what it is that you want us to focus on in those areas so we can make sure we hit those and get our brilliance in the room to share with you. So, oh my goodness, I'm excited about this.
Same time, same channel. If you're watching this right now, it'll be next week, same time, same channel. We've been doing this for quite a while now. We're going to continue to do this. The only weeks we skip are sometimes like Christmas. But even then, we have a broadcast that we have ready to go. So same time, same channel every week until otherwise notified. And we look forward to seeing you next week. We're probably going to talk about the 5 senses next week and drill down on how that relates to branding, marketing, AI, and how that plays. And it's some of the movies that we're watching, we're actually going to see some of this stuff coming up here pretty soon. So we might as well understand it before we get there, not just pretend like it's not happening or try to fight against it, because technology and human history have this kind of interesting pattern where you can't really stop innovation that helps a lot of people. Like, you just can't stop that. It's just amazing how that works. So that'll be fun to talk about and wrestle around that in the next coming weeks. Christine, we also have an open networking, like an open place for us to come and play and talk about white labeling each other's services and softwares and products and just different things that we can bring to the table. And we have a lot of fun doing that. And it's open to anybody. You don't have to be a member yet. No, you don't have to be a member to come and play with Christine on Wednesdays. So go to givermarketing.com/networking and we'll make sure and get you access to that. No cost to you because you saw the broadcast. We're very selective with who we let in the room, but as long as you register and we kind of see that you're coming, then we'll make sure that you get a pass to that. Just be nice and share and contribute and ask good questions, and we'll have lots of fun together. And that's on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Go to givermarketing.com/networking. All right, so that's our little commercial. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel, or we'll see you tomorrow if you grab that link. God bless. Talk to you soon.